Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue au sommet international de buildingSMART. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our buildingSMART International Summit in Montreal. This is our first time we've been together for 3 years. The last time we were all together like this was in Beijing in 2019. And it's fantastic to see so many of you here today. And a big welcome also to all those people that are joining us online using our streaming service. We're very busy, 4 days planned for you. You will see that despite the pandemic, that the buildingSMART community and its programs have been busier than ever. And we have a fantastic selection of informed and interesting people to speak to you today. Before I continue though, I just really want to acknowledge that actually we're not all together. We have tragically lost our chief executive, our leader, our inspiration, Richard Petrie, earlier this year. It's a tragically sad thing to have happened, and I know I speak for all the buildingSMART management office when I say that we miss him enormously every day. I'm not going to say any more about what a fantastic person Richard was now, because I know Patrick MacLeamy is going to play proper homage to him shortly. So, before we continue and bring people onto the stage, there's a few things I just need to tell you about to make sure the day goes smoothly. Firstly, there are no planned fire alarms. If the fire alarm does go off, please leave the building through the most appropriate emergency exit. And I also want to share with you how the week is panning out. So today is our opening plenary. Welcome. This evening we'll be having some cocktails, some drinks on the 3rd floor, and before we go off to the 3rd floor we'll have a group photograph on the stage, but I'll remind you. On the Wednesday and the Thursday we have 2 events running in parallel. We have the buildingSMART International Summit and we have the Canadian National Day, National Conference I should say. And on the Thursday evening, we've got our International Awards dinner, so make sure you've practiced your cheering in time for that. And on Friday, we'll have our closing plenary. Speaking of the International Awards, many of the finalists are here with us at the summit this week. Please make sure that you go and see some of their presentations. 2 examples here. They're taking place on Wednesday. But others are taking place on Wednesday and the Thursday. And we also have the Hop-In application that we're using this time. Hop-In is the online platform that you can use whether you're here at the conference or whether you're joining us online. And there's various aspects to it. Download the app. What it will allow you to do is make the most of the event. So first thing to do is download the app, step 1. Find the confirmation email from buildingSMART International, which will come to you from noreply@hopin.com. Log in and set up your profile. And what that will allow you to do, if you're here, is allow you to see the full agenda, know where to go next for the event that you want to see. I believe it also allows you to watch one event while watching the other one in real time, but I'm not sure how that would manage or why you'd want to. It can also allow you to chat to other delegates. So the way it works is you get to the login page and you have this menu and there's various things that you can do. You can, as I say, look at the schedule. You can navigate up and down on the left-hand side there, and various other aspects as well, which you work out. We have a strong support team here to plan and help you through the week. Dan Little, our events manager, who's worked with the Canadian chapter, and Aidan Mercer to set all this up. We have Sheila Karai-Lum, Jeffrey Ouellette, Susan Keenside, our awards program manager, Maddie Petrie, John Proctor, and Laura Tan. Those are the people that are all from the buildingSMART International team, so reach out to them. But also on the events planning team, we have Martin Drolet, we have Jamie Desmarais, and we have Marie-Hélène Fabre-Dufour. So they're here to help you as well. So I'm now going to, oh, no I'm not, 1 second. We're going to play a short video showing our community and how they are engaging with buildingSMART.
Austria.
Benelux.
Czech Republic.
Denmark.
Finland. Germany.
Italia.
Japan.
Morocco. Norway. Poland. Portugal. Romania.
Slovenia.
Spain. Sweden. Switzerland.
UK and Ireland. USA.
So I want to introduce Patrick MacLeamy. Patrick is our founder, chairman. He's formerly the chief executive chairman of Distinguished Architects HOK. He is also a podcaster, an author, a philanthropist, and everybody's friend. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you. I cannot tell you how happy I am to be here in person instead of on a Zoom screen. Some of you can still see me on Zoom, I know, and I wish we were all here together, but this is a good crowd here in Montreal, so I'm most grateful that we're able to gather again and share our progress and our success with each other. This is a special day. It's our first summit, as everybody knows, since we were together in Beijing. First in-person summit. And this is a photograph. I don't think this is, maybe it is Beijing. Anyway, is this Beijing, Richard?
Press it again, and it should work.
Düsseldorf, before Beijing. I think Beijing, there were too many people to fit on the screen. Anyway, this is our community, this is our family. And this is who we are, people from around the world as good friends, creating and developing and publishing and then helping others to use good international standards for open working. That's what we do. I want to talk about Richard Petrie. Richard Petrie was, I think, easily a friend to everyone in this room and all of you who are outside this room that knew him. Everyone seemed to be Richard's best friend, myself included. An extraordinary man. And Richard's legacy is the buildingSMART of today. When Richard began with buildingSMART 9 years ago, we were a very dedicated, hardy group of volunteers who were hoping and wishing that we could actually put a dent in the world and make things better. And the buildingSMART of today, all these people, all these chapters, all this activity is really Richard Petrie's buildingSMART. So he's here in spirit, I know he is, and he's in our hearts, I know that's true, but this is also his buildingSMART today. It's our job to carry forward and to make buildingSMART shine even brighter and to finish the job that Richard got us so nobly on the path to achieving. There are some wonderful people that Richard helped to hire, nurtured, put into place. These people are here and are able to help all of us do our work, not only at this conference, but every day. And again, this is something that Richard built. We have a search on, as we must, to replace Richard, not with another Richard, because I think that's impossible, but to find a CEO to take us in the directions that we need to go. I will tell you that Richard and I had this conversation several times before he was taken from us, that he said, you know, I'd like to step back now, and the next CEO should be the one to take us further, especially someone that is outward facing, that can go around the world and help tell our story. Because he said, we built the organization. The organization now exists. We can do the work. We just need more of the world to know about us. So we're in that process. A subcommittee of the board is working on this. We've hired Cormus, professional search firm that actually helped us. Their predecessor firm helped us find Richard, and then helped Richard find the 4 directors. They're helping us again to find someone else to replace our dear Richard Petrie. Now, before I go any further, we have a very special person here today, Jane Petrie. Jane is the person that shared her husband, Richard, with us for these last 9 years. And we want to thank Jane for sharing her husband with us for all this time. Jane, thank you. Oh. And we have some flowers for you. And you don't have to say anything, but if you wish, you can say a few words. As you wish. Okay. Well, we'll let it be then. But again, big welcome. If you see Jane around today or the next few days, please say hello and thank her for sharing her husband with us.
Thank you, Patrick, and welcome, Jane. We want to thank our sponsors, the people who have contributed the funds to help put this event on. Our platinum sponsors are Dassault Systems and Autodesk. Our gold sponsors are Bexel and Greytech. Our silver sponsors are Akka, Ravizzo, Pomelo, SolidCAD, NBS, Esri, Dalux, and Graphisoft. And our other bronze sponsors are Magel, ABC, BWT, GLT, Canam, De Rofus, Proventure Roy, Ellis Don, Sistra, HDR, and Simbim. And our sponsor that's sponsoring the cocktail event tonight is Bentley. So thank you. And then we have media partners from Project Management Institute Montreal, Collective, buildingSMART France, Numana, Geomatics, AFG, Open Geospatial Consortium, the Geospatial Word, and Construct. So thank you very much to all of our sponsors and our partners for helping make this event successful. And some more people just to focus in on for the events team. Dan Little, who is here with us. He's our events manager from buildingSMART International. And Aidan Mercer. Aidan Mercer isn't here, unfortunately. Aidan's our marketing director, but he's got another job, a more important one at the moment, and that it's a husband and father. He is expecting, or him and his wife are expecting their second child any day now, so that's why he's not with us. So we wish them well with the new arrival. I'm also going to be introducing very shortly Bill Moore. He is the chair of buildingSMART Canada and supported the putting on of this event by Eric Poirier, and also we're grateful to Martin Lafleur, who is the BIM Quebec head, and I'll be introducing him shortly as well. So thank you very much to all these people. Thank you. So let me introduce Bill Moore. Bill is the president of buildingSMART Canada. He's a member of the International Standards Organization, ISO. He is also a member of the Standards Council of the Canada Mirror Committee. He serves on the board of experts for the ACO Innovations Lab. He is the chairman and founder of the Calgary BIM community and previously served as the treasurer and board director of buildingSMART International, which I particularly was grateful for him to doing. And Bill is also an active contributor to the international, national and regional digital transformation and building information modeling committees and organizations.
There. Well, I'll start off by welcoming everyone to Canada and Montreal. So thank you all for those that are here in person and have made long journeys. And for those that are local, we appreciate your attendance as well. On behalf, interestingly, we had planned to host this conference 2 years ago. And it was disrupted by a pandemic, which then resulted in a whole rethink of how we were going to do this. Part of the challenge is not knowing whether people would make the trip for us. So I'm really excited to see all the people here today that have actually made the journey to join us. So thank you for that. I'm thrilled to welcome you to this signature event that brings together an international community of subject matter experts to drive digital transformation and facilitate resilience in the built asset industry. buildingSMART International is a recognized global leader enabling transformation, which has facilitated investment, innovation, influence, community, and the development of open standards. buildingSMART Canada is proudly celebrating its 10-year anniversary as a chapter of buildingSMART International. And we're committed to leading and facilitating the digitalization of Canada's built environment. We recognize and invite the guidance this global community and the openBIM standards contributes to our digital transformation journey. We're truly honored to be hosting the important work that will be undertaken in the coming days. We're equally excited to be hosting an event within an event, our first national conference, with a focus on enabling Canada's digital twin ecosystem through openBIM. The national conference will feature an impressive portfolio of subject matter experts sharing compelling and relevant experience and knowledge on government strategies for BIM, openBIM for municipalities, through which we're excited to play a role with our municipal infrastructure councils in Canada, openBIM for infrastructure and transportation, and a panel discussion around what's next for Canada. We're confident that all of you will gain useful insight and take advantage of networking opportunities over the next few days. Add to this the backdrop of the beautiful city of Montreal, coupled with a rich and historic culture of Quebec. Pardon me. And we are certain that this event will be memorable for all. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our partners, organizers, sponsors, and you, the participants. Finally, as you experience the importance of buildingSMART's work and community over the coming days, we hope you will be inspired to join buildingSMART Canada as we lead and facilitate the digitalization of Canada's built environment. Thank you.
And I want to invite onto the stage Martin Lafleur. Martin is the General Director of the Quebec BIM Group, the Group BIM du Quebec. It is a buildingSMART affiliate association supporting the construction industry in Quebec towards digital transformation and the adoption of building information modelling. He is a member of the Quebec Intersectorial Table on BIM, an integrated design process, and prior to leading the BIM Quebec Group, Martin managed public-private digital transformation programs in the aerospace sector and other manufacturing sectors in Quebec and at the federal level. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Richard. Can you hear me? The sound, okay, the sound's there. Great. Thank you very much, Richard. Hello to everyone. Au nom du groupe BIM du Québec et de l'ensemble de ses membres, nous sommes très fiers et très honorés d'accueillir aujourd'hui à Montréal les délégués de buildingSMART International et buildingSMART Canada. We decided a year ago to organize with our partners, buildingSMART Canada and buildingSMART International, two concurrent events, the International Standards Summit and the first annual National Conference on Digital Transformation in the Canadian Built Asset Industry. We strongly believe that collaboration, sharing of ideas, and concerted actions with our fellow BIM colleagues from other parts of Canada and from abroad is the best way to solve the questions we will be trying to answer during the next 4 days, how to drive digital transformation to ensure resilience in the built asset industry. The Quebec BIM Group was established 13 years ago. Today it brings together 300 individual members and 50 company partners ranging from engineering and architectural firms to general and specialized contractors, technology providers, contracting parties, and academia. We are the only BIM community in Canada operating at the provincial level, and we are proud affiliates of the buildingSMART Canada network. In its plan d'action pour le secteur de la construction, the Quebec government established that although experiencing strong growth, the province's construction sector was not sustaining the level of productivity needed for delivering the built asset the province requires. Although the many causes of that productivity gap, among the many causes of that productivity gap, two factors stand out. The government recognizes that building information modeling is at the heart of the digital transformation of the construction industry, but it is still a long ways to go being generally implemented across the industry. And also the digital transformation of the construction companies must be supported by government and private industry stakeholders. So in its own way, the Quebec BIM Group's mission is to help promoting and accelerating the adoption of BIM throughout the construction industry in Quebec. We operate according to a three-pronged approach. First, we organize many conferences and social gatherings, such as this one, during the year, to give our members opportunities to meet and exchange. In addition, next year we will be assisting buildingSMART France and the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal in organizing the next delegation of Quebec construction companies participating in BIM World in Paris next April. Secondly, we work with all the stakeholders of the industry to promote and push the implementation of BIM across the industry. The Quebec BIM Group leads the multi-sectoral table on BIM and integrated design process, composed of 20 of the most important associations of the construction sector in Quebec and 6 public institutions. In addition, we were given the opportunity, the responsibility of coordinating the industry working groups of the Quebec government's roadmap for building information modeling. And thirdly, we provide management services to operate public and professional programs on digital transformation and the deployment of BIM, like the Initiative Québécoise pour la Construction 4.0 for the Quebec government. With the help of our partner, the Institut de Gouvernance Numérique, we have performed over 400 digital audits to this day. Finally, with the collaboration of buildingSMART Canada, we will carry out the professional certification program of buildingSMART International across Canada in 2023. So with all that being said, we wish that during the next 4 days of this summit, you benefit fully from the expertise and ideas of our speakers and your fellow delegates. I wish you all a great summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I'm now going to invite onto the stage Ian Howell. Ian Howell is also a founder of buildingSMART, along with Patrick. He's an Australian architect. He was, and throughout his career, he's got this consistent thread of digital adoption. He was managing partner of the Sydney office of a national practice and a distributor for the first 3D design systems before the term BIM was coined. He was also, he relocated to the US to work for Autodesk as director of AEC products and industry marketing. He was a vice president of product marketing at Blue Line and Citadon in the old .com era. And as CEO of Newformer, he led the development of the first global project information management solution designed specifically for architects and engineers. He also served on the board of the NH Tech Alliance as the executive in residence at Building Ventures, and as a MIT Design X mentor, he is a buildingSMART fellow. Currently, Ian is the principal consultant at the Built Environment Strategies engaged in the US, or rather is engaged as the US representative tasked with the re-establishment of the US chapter in buildingSMART. And at the request of the buildingSMART International Board, and I have to say also at the request of the management team, because we knew Ian well, he is currently serving as our interim CEO, pending the appointment of a replacement full-time CEO. And I'm very grateful that he's doing so. So Ian, please come and join us.
So welcome everybody, and just to give you an idea of numbers, we have about 700 people in total, combining our physical audience here, thank you for being in Montreal, and our virtual audience, so very, very successful. What I'd like to do is just share with you or remind you that we did publish our 2021 annual report midway through the year, and this is a fabulous summary of all of the things that Richard Petrie accomplished. He built an organization from literally nothing, a blank sheet of paper, no budget and no staff, into the organization that buildingSMART International is today. And right through the end of 2021, we were able to document that growth and all those accomplishments from his leadership, as well as setting some of the agenda for 2022. And my job, really coming in as interim CEO, is what I would call business continuity. You know, keep it all going in honor of Richard's legacy, make sure that we were executing against the plans he had for 2022 and the forward vision going forward. And that's been very easy to do with a very, very competent leadership team, some terrific dedicated staff, and of course the support of the entire buildingSMART community. Thank you. A couple of other things we've done is we've brought in Celine as our compliance director. That was the next hire Richard wanted to make. Richard actually searched and found Celine and offered her the job right at the time that I came on board, and just had the joy of signing the employment agreement, and away we go. So this was another part of Richard's master plan that we were able to execute. We added 3 new chapters mid-year, developing chapters, which is very exciting, including Morocco, which is the first on our African continent. Again, just part of that global reach. We did a switch, as we do, with rotation board members. Evandro has joined us in the capacity of being kind of a solutions engineer on how we really apply our standards and how can we help our community do that. We have 21 finalists here. Richard mentioned the awards program. There are actually 21 finalists out of 140 some submissions. So the awards program is been well supported, and some of those projects are absolutely excellent. And you know, of course, we have the documentation of past award winners in our award yearbooks, which I would encourage you to grab. There are copies outside. Of course, we're putting IFC 4.3 into the ISO process. I'll give you a quick update on that. We continue to develop the roadmap, and we have a couple of new initiatives that I'm going to share with you. So this community involves the effort of a lot of people. We have our rooms, we have steering committees, and we have massive amount of volunteers who work on projects. So all of buildingSMART works because of you all, and certainly there's some direction, leadership, and process that we apply as the buildingSMART staff, just of 15 people, really supporting all of these in-kind contributions, all of the domain expertise, and all of the effort that you all bring that we can take advantage of and help build consensus-based international standards. There are a lot of projects that are current. I won't go through them individually, but each of the rooms are very active with their projects. Each of these projects are contributing innovation and ideas and driving interoperability across multiple domains. The ISO process update is a very positive one. We are now a draft international standard, so we've gone through the technical review process. This is all now in the hands of ISO, running through their process. We are draft standard, that goes to ballot. So any of you and all of you who have any influence on ISO voting, please encourage people to understand the importance of this update to IFC so that we can get it through the ballot process and officially an ISO standard, which will then, on the buildingSMART side, become a final standard from our community. So that's sort of the 2022 report card, but one of my jobs as interim CEO is sort of to look ahead in a couple of ways. One, supporting Patrick and the board selection committee in trying to find a full-time replacement CEO and putting at least some of the roadmap in place in terms of what's coming ahead. And what's coming ahead is, I believe, a massive wave of adoption. There's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, unprecedented, we now have many, many agencies, global agencies, particularly in transportation infrastructure, literally saying we need IFC open data. We want to support that open standard. That's how we want to go forward with our roads, our bridges, and our infrastructure and our buildings. So this mandate is creating a pull in the marketplace, which we've never really had before. You know, a lot of you have been at this for a very long time, pushing a good idea like a rock up the hill. Now we have some pull in the marketplace where owners are literally saying, we want open data. That's how we want to manage our assets. The other thing that's happened, unprecedented, is all of the major vendors have committed publicly to supporting open standards. It used to be that our proprietary format's better than their proprietary format, and that's the reason you should use our software, and there was the idea of locking in data to various systems, denying users choice. That's no longer the case because all of these CEOs are on record, and many of them were actually here at our Strategic Advisory Council meeting yesterday, again, publicly stating that open standards are absolutely part of their portfolio. So this is a really exciting difference. So we have users mandating, we have software vendors supporting IFC 4.3 implementation, putting them into current product cycles, all of which will be this massive wave of adoption where the community, the professional community, the industry stakeholders, the project team, consultants, are all going to have to know how to use this thing called IFC, how to deploy these open standards, and deliver for the project, for the asset, those deliverables. So what are we doing about that in terms of our look forward strategy? And the answer is we're focusing buildingSMART away from building the standard, which is what we've been doing for a very long time, necessarily, to really how do we deploy in practice on projects those standards to make our owners successful using all of the new tools. So we really need to say, okay, what's the value proposition for doing that? Change costs time and money. We're wanting to be sure that there's not just foundation level knowledge training, which we have now, but practitioner training. I'll talk in a moment about accelerated projects, which is helping our consulting members of the buildingSMART community be successful in applying best practices. We certainly need to have software certification of all of the new IFC 4.3 products. And of course, organizationally, we do have to focus on some growth in terms of new members, new chapters, and I'll talk about some specific key initiatives. But this value proposition is all about interoperable solutions. It's about open data that can be managed, information that can be shared, the flexibility, the collaboration that all of that enables. We call that openBIM, and that's not restricted to any particular vendor. As you know, it's a vendor-neutral strategy. And we're really focusing on what are the use cases and the exchange requirements that need to be managed and to be able to deliver all those project deliverables. The professional certification that we are doing currently at the foundation and knowledge level is already deployed by 14 chapters with 8 more in 11 languages. So that's been very successful, but what we now have to do is build out an entire compliance program. This is why we needed our new compliance director to focus on how do we certify projects? How do we give practitioner level training? How do we do a fast start program? How can we test this with the China chapter stepping up to being a test bed for us, and a big steering committee in Rome talking about how can we prioritize the information and the knowledge base and the understanding that we need to make available to all of the professional stakeholders to be able to deploy these standards. We're also working on some accelerated projects. We call this the openBIM framework, trying to build some resources that can be shared with all of our chapters in terms of user guides, workflows, best practices, and having a knowledge portal that can be shared with the chapters. So just like with our professional training, the chapters can then take that into their countries in the various languages and working with the consultants they have in their community. So again, all user-focused, all about implementation and the successful use of these standards on projects. And of course, compliance maps to that in terms of professionals wanting to have on their resume that they're openBIM certified, professionals wanting to be the higher level of practitioner certified, and of course giving everyone the security that if you're using a piece of software that says that it's supporting IFC 4.3, that it has the stamp of certification to say that that implementation is in accordance with the standard. So we've come up with a template, as it were. We've got 3 or 4 companies that are working with us on the first of these accelerated projects so that we can, by working with them, start to create the user guides, start to create the knowledge base, and come up with a template that the chapters can then repeat in terms of how they would structure a proposal, do an initial workshop, identify gap analysis, and then provide a set of services in terms of applying, whether it's the buildingSMART data dictionary or IFC or openCDE, or using the use case management tool to their business, to their project, and to their processes. Certification we're proposing will be at different levels. We want to make users be able to do validation of project models. We think that's important. It's new. It's something that we definitely need. All the way through to use case management certification, which is the more traditional approach that we've provided previously, but we've only provided. The idea of having 3 levels of certification will streamline and give users and projects tools that they don't currently have today. The community is very healthy, very vibrant. We've got a lot of chapters. You saw all of the people involved in the rooms and the projects. We welcomed Morocco, Portugal, and Romania as new chapters, and as you can see on the bottom right, we have inquiries and strong interest from Brazil and India and Saudi, with people and companies wanting to start chapters in those locations. So our job as buildingSMART International is to foster that, support them, explain to them how they can do that, marry them up with an existing chapter who can help them get started, and that's part of our 2023 planned growth. The 3 key initiatives that I referenced, the first one is to continue to develop the technology roadmap. This was published about 2.5 years ago. Leon sort of put out a master plan that the community contributed to and signed off on. A lot of work has been done. The fact that we now have all these solutions and services that work together in a complementary way to even be able to take into an accelerated program, it's some of the advances we've made since Leon joined 2.5 years ago. In fact, Leon, I think, was first on the job when we were all in Beijing and together the last time. The second is to have a strategic roadmap for buildingSMART that looks even beyond the next 2 to 3 years to say, in terms of a vision, what are we trying to do to help the industry longer term? And the industry is certainly shifting from this idea of abandoning 2D documents, adopting CAD, kind of maturing from CAD into using building information models, and sort of the next big thing that everyone's talking about but hasn't figured out and doesn't quite know what to do is the digital twin. And how can we enable that and allow those different ecosystems to talk together, again, through obviously the enablement of open standards and connectors. So we're trying to put out a vision that'll help support the industry and will help drive the technical roadmap. And then the third area is to really work closely with OGC. As you see, they're very much supporting us here today. There's a lot of intersections. Every building has a site. Every roadway has a map. And how do we get that BIM GIS integration and coordination going? Esri are now multinational members, which is fantastic, supporting IFC and their GIS platform. So we believe we can make a lot of progress in this area as another key initiative. So thank you for being here. We look forward to you joining us again in Rome. So please make a note in your diaries that our spring summit next year is in Rome, 27th to 30th of March. And it won't be me giving you an update at that time. Hopefully it will be the new full-time CEO. Thank you very much.
I'm now introducing Remi Dornier. Remi is the Vice President of Architecture, Engineering and Construction for Dassault Systems. He has extensive experience leading business transformation for Dassault in the aerospace, naval, industrial equipment and CCT industries in Europe, Japan and China. Welcome, Remi.
Good morning, everyone. So it's a pleasure for me to be here. I'd like to thank buildingSMART associations. Do you hear me? Not yet. I have to do a tap dance as well to entertain people while the mic get on. Hello? Okay. So it's like in construction, I have tools in the end and I need to work with my computer. So I'd like to thank you very much, first of all, buildingSMART, to organize such an event, because it's a very good occasion to meet software vendors, to meet our clients all together and think about the next steps. It's always also an opportunity to learn. Yesterday I was sitting with Patrick and I learned the real meaning about IFC. So it's International Friendship Club, and it's not industry foundation class. And I think this mindset is fundamental. This is a value that we need to put in place all together to make sure the standard is definitely serving the industry. And you can count on Dassault Systems to fully participate in these initiatives. So my name is Remi Dornier, and I wanted today to speak about productizations in order to and explain how, by virtualizing construction's know-how, we are able to build sustainable, personalized, and affordable constructions. A few words about Dassault Systèmes legacy, because there are interesting stories we can learn from. We started in 1981 by doing 3D, complex curvatures, and because engineers are very creative, they quickly came up to assemble parts together so that they can make a mock-up. But the way they were doing the mock-up at that time were using a synthesis manner. So they were knocking at every door, collecting 3Ds, assembling the 3Ds so that they make a mock-up. So it were taking approximately 3 weeks in order to gather the mock-up, and they were meeting on Saturday morning in Dassault Aviation to have a look on the prototypes of the airplanes and so on, detect the interference, the issues, and allocate the change. When we started to work with Boeing on the 777, we completely switched off paradigm, and we stopped doing synthesis, and we started to do concurrent multidiscipline engineering. So that, in fact, engineers all work together, fluidic engineers, with structural engineers, with electrical engineers, so that they all work together and we can make a snapshot any times, in fact, on the engineering of the airplanes. With this way, we could reduce from 7 prototypes to 1 prototypes. And this is the best ever sold airplane, in fact, in the world. In the automotive, or with the aerospace, we do mass production. So we are delivering customized mass products which are nearly standard. So if you take an automotive, you release 30 to 40 automotive per hour with the production line. So you can afford to invest billions in the program and to virtualize not only the product, but to virtualize as well the constructions, I would say, process and methods. So to virtualize the workflow, the people workflow, to virtualize the procurements and material workflow and so on. And this is something we can learn, I would say, from, but there are specificities of AEC which prevent us to mimic, in fact, this path about the manufacturing sectors. Talking about Dassault Systems, so product lifecycle management was, I would say, extremely, useful in order to manage, mass productions. And we started to extend the platforms, realizing that all the, numerous data that we collect are profitable for a number of population and stakeholders, which are not only engineers inside the factory. And this is how we came up to create the 3D Experience platform, which is one single data model, so that any object could beneficiate and help on decision-making on various populations. And on top of that, creating a city, creating a building, creating an infrastructure is not at all, in fact, the same thing than creating a product, because it relies on the built environment. So based on the acquisitions we made on 3D GIS, we spend quality times to make sure we have, in fact, a multi-scale platform, able to move from the territory level to the building and infrastructure, to the equipment, to the components, in fact, with the seamless integrations. So this is what I wanted to explain, in fact, regarding Dassault Systems and our, I would say, history. Regarding the construction challenge, so as I was explaining, I don't think we can follow the manufacturing sector path. There are specificities and challenges that we really have to solve on construction industry, which are today guiding the way we build our strategy. 3 challenges, mainly sustainability through regulations, is increasing the complexity inside the project, decreasing the profitability, and multiply, increase, in fact, the interface, and especially the interface between trades. And I consider that as an opportunity, It's an opportunity to question something that was not questionable so far. This is a trade-based organization of the constructions. If I take an example, you take the lift inside buildings, nobody is asking who is the metal worker who makes the metallic engineering, who is the electronic guys, or the electrical guys that make the lift. No, we are doing one system, and this system, this is a lift. So that's an inspiration we can, I would say, get insight from. The second topic is the lack of productivity. Always get angry when I hear that, because I do not think that, in fact, the construction industry is late. So far, it was more the technology that was not ready in order to address the specificity of the industries. So you take a car, an airplane, it's a standard component full of tailor-made elements. But if you take a building, it's a tailor-made element, this is a sketch from the architect, full of standard components. And this building is unique. So we cannot manufacture thousands of buildings. It will always be unique. The mayor will be unique, the architect will be unique, in fact, and the subcontractors will be regionalized and unique. So we cannot go through mass productions from craftsmanship. We have to draft a new path. And this new path is so-called, in fact, personalized productions, addressing also regionalized productions. And this is what we are thinking about. And you need technology to do that. You need cloud in order to connect the fragmented ecosystems. You need generative designs in order to virtualize knowledge as well. Last but not least, we're all facing skill scarcity. And with the association, I think that by switching of paradigm, not replacing, but I would say keeping trade skills, but adding one more population, which is educated, in fact, on multi-trade engineering, assembly, and manufacturing, then we can solve this skill scarcity and decrease the number of interfaces on the field. Three observations that I wanted to share. I've been spending 5 years in China to implement BIM with, I would say, railway companies, CRDC, with urban infrastructure companies, SMEDI, and with, in fact, time engineering companies, GD. And I was very happy because we know we could reduce engineering time by 30%. We could detect interference, and we could show to the mayor the elevated highway that we will be about to build. But when I started to visit the field, the execution field, what I realized is that the BIM is not used on the field. In fact, it's immediately flattened. And in fact, the field supervisors or the workers, they are using drawings, even sketch handwritings, in order to make what they have to do. Procurements, so to identify the list of materials they need to order, or work instructions. So one thing is missing there, this is the know-how. The know-how about constructions, how to virtualize the know-how. And where do we, I would say, put in the BIM the answer to the how question? How do I build, in fact, these walls and so on? And this is all about productizations. Another observations that I wanted to share, this is a project that we did 5 years ago with Vinci. So it's a 3 million residential project. And we wanted to make the virtual twin of the project. So we did the virtual twin of the project. We spent 350k euro in order to make this virtual twin. Every details are there. So when I say detail, something that need to be ordered or manufactured and assembled on site. At the end, what we realized is that we could not use this virtual twin in order, in fact, to orchestrate procurement and work instructions, because the time we need to make this virtual twin is too long compared to the time we have to do the constructions. So there is not a problem of technology only, it's also a problematic of method. And here, regarding the methods, we have been thinking also how to be able to reuse from one project to another and not start in front from a white sheet somehow. And getting learnings from system thinking have been helping us a lot. So I have this story which is kind of interesting, Black & Decker, so they are manufacturing do-it-yourself tools. And in 1970, regulation is changing. And they have to rethink completely their tooling product lines because you need a double installation for the electrical engine. So they gathered, in fact, the 60 product managers and asking, in fact, if we could happen one single electrical engines. Of course, every product manager was explaining my saw is sawing, my driller is drilling, so I cannot use the engine of my neighbors and so on. And at the end, by collecting the specificities of each engine, the parametrizations and so on, thinking modular, we were able to happen one modular electrical engines able to address, in fact, all the product lines. So this helps to grow definitely the benefits. to reduce the manufacturing times, the materials by 39%. And I think we can definitely learn from these logics and rethink completely the way we decompose the buildings using modular and system thinking approach. Last but not least, third observations. We don't have to engineer one system, the buildings. We need to engineer the building and to engineer the project on which we will be constructing the buildings. Because many of the interface conflicts that we observe on the field are coming from the resource. So for example, here on these data centers, you have the cooling units, all the scaffolding elements prevents any activities, in fact, on these specific zones. And we need to somehow anticipate that and coordinate the resource accordingly. And today it's very hard to get on the informations of the project, all those informations. So our objectives is to build a construction virtual twin. So it will be a slight transformation to build a construction virtual twin, which is serving definitely the field executions. So we have been decomposing such an approach in a twofold incremental approach. One area relies on collaboration, connecting people together around the virtual twin so that they can find traceable, reliable information, either thanks to the mockup or through the work package with clear interface defined, or through the schedules. And meanwhile, step by steps on the project, there are pieces of the constructions that we can build with a very high accuracy. By accuracy, I mean capacity to make the procurements from the digital mockups and the work instructions. And this is all about productizations. And our approach works, in fact, on enabling collaborations to drive the change, driving also answering to the question how, and step by step moving from a practice which is document-centric to a practice which is object-based, while we are working on the productization approach. So, few examples regarding, in fact, collaborations. The first example I wanted to share is one of the projects we have been running with ARAP in Hong Kong, and with Hong Kong, their urban planning departments. So the city wanted to make collaborative applications, better serving, in fact, all the organizations. And one of the use cases we have been working on, this is, in fact, on the brownfield bid and design phases. So in this case, what we're expected is that we don't share only document data sets with all the bid stakeholders, but we share also all the macroeconomic informations, plus the virtual twin of the area that has to be rebuilt, so that every bid, in fact, bidders can be reusing those data and, in fact, adapt and feedback their project based on the environment that has been shared to them. So documents practices remains, but we elevate those document practices with an object-based approach where, in fact, the design of the brownfield can be fully put inside the context and so on. So among the 33 departments, the brownfield cycles last, I would say, approximately 12 months. And after that, in fact, you have the urban planning is circulating all, I would say, the brownfield urban planning details to the 16 other departments, UH, mobilities, and so on. And the complexity of the urban planning is so big that it's very difficult to integrate all their feedbacks inside the virtual twins. So with such an approach, we can anticipate somehow the decision makings and use the virtual twin to better socialize and present, in fact, the project progress inside across the organizations. Being able to build such environments requires openness at territory scale. So I welcome very much, in fact, the OGC discussions that we have together, of course, at the building scales as well. And we are very much, in fact, today implementing the guidance about the IFCs and so on. So we have been starting in 2014. So we are now, in fact, on the IFC 4.3. We have strong expectations on the IFC-5, especially on system thinking. And we hope that BSDD will help us to drive the creativity of architects, engineers about parametrizations things. On the field, collaboration is not the same. We need digital to come to people. And I wanted to show you this video, which highlight how we've been working on that.
The human dimension is key, because our job requires a lot of commitment and passion. As head of operations, I'm responsible for the construction of the Lafleur swimming pool and the Pantal Conservatory. The work supervisor is an orchestra conductor. He's at the core of the machine, of the reactor. All information goes through him. We manage a huge mass and flow of information. This is the whole point of the experience we lived with the platform. It's about how to centralize all this information, to have the best collaborative tools, and to ensure that we don't miss a piece of information that could jeopardize the whole operation. Hence, the collaboration of the Dassault Systems teams was very fruitful, because the principle of this relationship was based on their integration into our teams. A kind of live my life to help them really understand our way of doing things, our way of working, and then build our use cases and our own experience of the platform. Our experience with the platform was to create a support to work more collaboratively, to exchange among us more easily and more exhaustively. On the Pantau site, the platform was a real lever and a real help in getting people on board. Creating use cases on the platform with the Dassault Systems teams was a real human experience. A work site is a great human adventure.
That was for collaborations at different scale. So collaborations at the engineering phase, but collaboration at the execution phase as well. Talking about virtualizing constructions know-how. It's a brand new approach that requires to put people together, architects, engineers, but also workers, in order to understand what are the manufacturing and assembly, I would say, specificities somehow, and to virtualize that on what we call Lego sets, integrated ready modules that could be reused from one project to another. So we think product line for an industrial facility, a data center, for example, residential facilities, nursing homes, hospitals, and inside this product line, we try to catch the parametrizations that we have to address. It's impossible at the building scale, it's too specific, and that's why, in fact, we divide the building in a lump of sums, in fact, of virtual bricks. And at the stage of the virtual brick, it becomes feasible to parameterize and understand the parametrizations that we'll give to the brick. So this is how we started to make bricks. Bricks on facade, bricks, in fact, on renovations, external insulations, bricks about service risers, bricks about, I would say, partitioning walls, and so on. And we could also observe that overall, we get 30% productivity gain when we are using, in fact, such practice at the brick level, of course. 15% material sparing, because we are much more precise on the planning, on all the details and components, and we can start to make nesting in the factories. And then we get centralized procurements, which is reducing the procurement cost, obviously, because we give to general contractors or developers capability to understand the list of purchasing that need to be done, which is usually on the specialty contractor side. Last but not least, we are able to compute very precise LCA and CO2 footprint on these kind of bricks. So how it works basically, it's an off-cycle approach, meaning that we don't work in a project cycles in order to create the brick. And the brick must be prototypes somehow. And for that, we are unifying various skills. So the skills of the architect, as I was explaining, the engineering fields and domain, in order to understand the parameterization, the variabilities that we have been to address. So for that, we identify the components that will compose the bricks, the interface that we have to face and to manage, and then the parameterizations that we have to include and look for somehow inside these bricks. So once this parameterization and serialization is done, we also include all the, I would say, the virtualizations about the construction practices according the construction practice that will be used off-site or on-site installations. We can have various, I would say, approach. And based on that, we have our virtual bricks that we prototype one times. When it's prototyped, we send that on 10 different fields to make sure that this field, these bricks works efficiently. And then we work on the integration of the bricks. Here, it requires no engineerings. In fact, only, I would say, generative integrations inside the mockups, so that afterwards we can already have a very accurate information about work instructions and procurement material list. So to give you an examples, This is something, in fact, I'd like to highlight. It's not about standardizations. We don't standardize. The geometry is something we can quickly adapt from. So here in this example, this is a nursing home we have been doing in Vertu. We have been able, with the same product line, to generate all the rooms that you see here, managing the symmetry, which brings a lot of tiny details. Devil is in the details, but when it comes to symmetry, there are many things to handle. And we have been able to manage the weird geometry, in fact, at the star branch here, using the same product lines, because the approach that we are using is generative. Another examples, and this is something I want to highlight, the productization has no parti pris, meaning that we are not pushing for prefabrications or on-site fabrications. It's about managing the virtualization of the field so that you can better execute daily activities. And regarding these virtualizations, by working with brick constructions, we have been virtualizing concrete pouring processes on college product lines. And what you see on the screen, in fact, this is today the way they are working to plan the concrete pouring cycles that they need to do, and with the workers, and to get all the informations related that they will allocate to workers on various activities and tasks. So people working on the bench with the measurements, people working on the rebar assembly on the field, and so on. Instead of having one full, I would say, big drawings, what happens is that a multiple set of deliverables dedicated to specific activities. Those activities can be highly reconfigurable according, I would say, the difference of change and so on. And as you can see here, you have seen people marking on the ground in order to mount this rebar assembly. We could have tomorrow marking robots, because we have now the construction virtual twins with all the information necessary to program the marking robots that we need. And we have also all the mannequins and the formworks which have been generated from this wall, meaning that we are thinking ahead, in fact, all the resources that we need for productions, construction, and assembly, anticipating, in fact, the interface issues that we will be facing. So that's one example that we have. We have also same kind of examples about prefabrications, of course, and so on. And the matter is to be able to structure and coordinate all teams together. So talking about that, so the construction virtual twin is at the heart of the orchestrations between the factories, the micro factories, the execution field, of course, that is gathering all the information and the flow, and the kitting warehouse. And when it comes to speak about, I would say, the micro factories, we have, I would say, strong expectations on micro factories, which are light, local, because it could trigger a new generation of entrepreneurs that are investing, in fact, on one machines and delivering very small and easy, I would say, kits to supply to the field. And they, so that, in fact, no drillings, cutting activities will be done on the field anymore. And those companies, they could receive work orders and manufacture on demand, in fact, work orders. We made examples like that, in fact, on service risers. It's very encouraging, and we'll be multiplying, in fact, those micro-factory initiatives, which does not require high capex investments and are not necessarily related to general contractors. So in conclusions, sustainability today is the main driver. So it's shaking the construction industry. It's a real opportunities to start to implement, in fact, disruptive approaches. Virtual twin-based orchestrations on cloud for all the ecosystem is a keystone of the transformations, because it federates people together. And this is how we can bring a very scattered and fragmented ecosystem on the same logic somehow to happen a construction virtual twin. Open standard is key for smooth exchange from document-centric practices to object-based practices. I didn't mention it here, but all the engineering that we have done are starting from the architect mockups. And the architect mocker is shared most of the times either in IFC or, I would say, using proprietary formats and so on. And this is where the openness is key. Last but not least, so productization is an enabler for us to virtualize construction's know-how, which is today's the game-changing approach in the construction virtual twin. So thanks to that, we can simplify construction experience and happen a real mock-up that is serving, in fact, the procurements and the work instructions and installations. And then with that, I believe we can provide personalized, sustainable, and affordable housing for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Remi. Thank you, Remi. It really feels like we've got the agenda underway now. We're off and running because we've got some real-life examples that Remi shared with us. And certainly, I'm sure because of the digital connectivity, the aspirations of manufacturing efficiency and productivity that Remi was referring to are almost upon us. I'm going to introduce now Marek Suchocki. Marek is an Autodesk Senior Global Business Development Executive focused on data standards and digitization within the AEC industry. He holds a degree in civil engineering, he's a chartered engineer, he's a chartered IT professional, and he's a triple fellow of the BCS, the ICE, and the CICES. He's also part of the buildingSMART UK and Ireland Management Committee and the International Infrastructure Room Steering Committee, where he also chairs the Project Steering Committee for Infrastructure. So, Marek, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. Sounds like the mic's working. Good morning to everybody here in Montreal. It's a pleasure to have people in person again. Welcome to everybody online, and bonjour tout le monde, I think. That'll be the length of my French for today. So, as Richard said, my name is Marek Suchocki, and I'm going to talk to you today about being open about openBIM. Because as the buildingSMART community, I want us to be very clear what we can do with openBIM and also communicate that to our collaborators and other stakeholders. I'm going to start with what we call a safe harbor statement. It's purely because a few of the things I'm going to show you later in the presentation are in development, so I don't want anyone to consider making any kind of purchasing decision based on everything I'm showing you. But most of the stuff I'm going to show you is already there, but just be careful that some of the stuff is in development, and I'll probably highlight it when I get to it. So first I'm going to kick off with the buildingSMART definition of openBIM. So there are 6 principles, and I actually do remember a few years back working with colleagues in Autodesk in providing feedback to buildingSMART around these bullet points that you see here. I think the top one is probably the most critical one, that interoperability is key to digital transformation in our asset industry. Open and neutral standards should be developed to facilitate interoperability. So I think what that's also saying is that we're not confident that everything is perfect already. We need to keep working on them, and clearly those of us who are active in buildingSMART rooms as well as different standards organizations recognize that the work needs to carry on to get a good critical mass of available open standards. The independent quality benchmarks, I think that's very important because we need to be able to have confidence that an exchange between 2 or more different softwares is done in a consistent and reliable manner, and this is a really important area for the certification role of buildingSMART. Collaboration workflows enhanced by open and agile data formats. Well, that's really telling us that actually we have the chance to do more by using these formats because it brings more actors into the process. And obviously flexibility of technology choice is valuable because you don't want to have too much imposition that you must buy this software because perhaps you can't afford it, but more likely you may not have people trained in all the tools. And finally, sustainability being safeguarded. This isn't necessarily about environmental sustainability, it's about making sure that information that's created today will be valuable tomorrow. So the openBIM principles are actually hopefully providing some degree of future-proofing or future confidence. So I'm going to talk now quickly about how Autodesk has had decades of commitment to open standards, and particularly our involvement in buildingSMART. Now, I've put up here that DXF was released in 1988. I'm sure everybody in the room is aware of DXF. I think it remains the most commonly used open exchange format, drawing exchange format. And it's been around for many decades. It's used in a variety of softwares, not just those for engineering and construction. So Autodesk released that because we did want to make sure that people could share CAD drawings at the heart. And Patrick and Ian, I think, will confirm that Autodesk established what was the Industry Alliance for Interoperability back in 1994 by inviting 20 or 25 other software vendors to join them to look at how to exchange information. That quickly became the International Alliance for Interoperability when the membership was opened up to anyone who was interested in '96. And soon that followed with the first release of that industry foundation class, IFC1. And there's a little certificate, someone in our team found one that Autodesk received for IFC2 in 1999, which was when I actually first got involved in the International Alliance for Interoperability. I used to work for Atkins. I was the Research and Innovation Manager there. And along with colleagues, we went along to first meetings for the UK chapter. And so I kind of got it. I realized that this is a really valuable thing to put some energy behind, because it meant that we as a engineering company could have confidence that we could share information between the tools we used, but also we saw that there was some value in us contributing to the development of these open standards. Moving forward, I mean, to me, the interesting one was in 2005 when the International Alliance for Interoperability got renamed as buildingSMART. I think two things happened here. One is it made it easier to pronounce those words for a non-English speaker. Even a native English speaker struggles with International Alliance for Interoperability. I personally got a little bit upset because I'm a civil engineer, as Richard's introduction said, so I don't like buildings. I think they're very easy. They're just vertical. I like linear stuff, and we'll come back to that later. So 2x3 came out in 2005, and that is still today the most commonly used version of IFC. And it's supported by a huge variety of software vendors, and lots of work has been done in leveraging IFC 2x3. 4 was released in 2013 as an update. 2018 we saw the first kind of formal release of 4.1. It never actually got certified as an actual standard, but that was the alignment. It was the first thing that was needed to provide civil engineering referencing, because the big difference between buildings that go up is they tend to use Cartesian coordinates, X, Y, Zs, whereas those of us who are civil engineers, we reference things along a chainage and an offset. So that alignment could be the center of a road, a curb line, part of a rail, but we use that as our referencing because if that alignment should change, because the road moves up, down, left or right, if we reference additional things like street furniture, they will all adjust along with that alignment change. And we really needed that as a core development. And that was the first thing that the infrastructure room, which I joined from its outset in around 2015, that's the first thing that we were able to push forward and release. And today we are sitting on the release of IFC 4.3. I will come back to this later, and you'll hear many more presentations around this from the infrastructure room over the coming days. To me, this is a landmark moment in the era of buildingSMART, because I think it's broadened the footprint of the community that we can serve, but actually I think it's also going to open up massive opportunities for owners in what they can actually leverage from open standards, but particularly from IFC. So just talking about how Autodesk is engaged in buildingSMART, this is the kind of generic organization chart, and I've put a little A there because as you now know, I'm part of the Infrastructure Room Steering Committee, and one of my super bright colleagues, Dr. Angel Vélez, is also involved in the technical room and has been involved in that for many years. So we are committing our time as Autodeskers to participate in the buildingSMART organization, and we have also committed ourselves to being participants in a number of chapters, both those that are full and developing. And again, some people like myself, I'm involved in the UK and Ireland Steering Committee, and others are just attendees. So, you know, we're giving our time over to help grow the buildingSMART community in the different regions. Also, Autodesk supports IFC, other buildingSMART standards in a huge number of products. One of our challenges as Autodesk is that we have masses of products. You know, we're not talking about, you know, one or maybe two softwares. We have lots, and we serve different markets. So what we want our users to have is the right tool for the job. We used to have a little joke that if AutoCAD was a hammer, then every problem was a nail, because everybody hits everything with AutoCAD. We can do every single project with AutoCAD. But actually, in our new BIM world, we can use a variety of tools to deliver the correct service depending on the discipline. And I'm very pleased to say that we have and we will continue to support IFC in a variety of tools. IFC 4, principally Revit, is our modelling application. It's also now, I think, the first piece of software has got full certification across the architecture, structural and MEP areas. We did release IFC 4.1 support in Civil 3D. It was kind of import-export, but frankly between our own tools, so it wasn't really adopted, but we wanted to test that we could do it. We've introduced BCF support in our Autodesk Construction Cloud and Documents tools, and we've even started doing some BSDD trials, both for Revit and Civil 3D. So we do have some early examples of using BSDD as well. These are absolutely completely beta, so please don't purchase those softwares on the basis that you've got BSDD support. We are doing this as pilots with companies, but we're going to try and develop that to make sure we can prove the value. And just so you're clear, openBIM isn't just about IFC and buildingSMART standards. There are many others that you should consider. And depending on the kind of work you're doing, whether it's spatial information, point clouds, terrain data, structural data, working in the oil and gas field, manufacturing, there are different standards that you can also exploit. And again, as Autodesk, we try to provide import and or export support where appropriate for a number of these tools. So that openBIM story gets a bit broader because we've got more standards that we can pick from in order to ensure that sustainability of that data moving forward. So I'm going to now challenge all of us about how open have we been about openBIM. And the IFC messaging we sometimes get doesn't always make sense, because we get these very sort of positive statements, promising the earth, and then sometimes we get some rather negative ones, and they're almost kind of destroying the ethos. So I don't want to see this. I'd like to see that all of us are able to provide a very balanced conversation around open standards, openBIM, and of course IFC at the heart. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's look at how applicable has IFC been. So going back to the fact that we were building smart for a long time, actually the real value has been in vertical construction. There has been some value in infrastructure in the past using 2x, 3 and 4, and it's only now that we've got 4.3 available that we can change those red colours to being absolute solid ambers and hopefully greens in the very near future. So to date, IFC has been most valuable in vertical construction. And what's great is that actually we don't have to have unrealistic claims. There are sufficient positives that we can talk about already. For me, the most important one is the data model. IFC provides us a hierarchical view of the built environment. And up to now, it's been vertical construction. But now that we've got 4.3, we can start looking at different industry domains. And I've been involved in the 4.3 work since the outset. And what's been so heartening is the international community of course, buildingSMART representatives, but also experts and key stakeholders who know about roads, who know about rail. They've been agreeing, sometimes with some fairly challenging conversations about what constitutes good when we describe infrastructure assets. And because that's now been agreed, and there will also, by the way, there are still going to be national and regional variations. So, rail, I know with the alignment, that's been a conversation I've kind of listened in on. I'm not sufficiently technically expert to know spiral curves and transitions, but, Italian and Transport for New South Wales spirals are apparently radically different to the ones that are used everywhere else. So they will be supported, but not at the core. There'll be a national or local variant available. But what we've got is a consensus around what constitutes good for infrastructure in 4.3. And moving forward, tunnel projects underway. You're going to hear more about this over the next few days. Please do come to the info room sessions to hear about that. But we are doing more work to expand that footprint and, of course, improve the ones that have already been done today. And this is true for buildings as well as for infrastructure. Other things that I think you should really be clear about is there are some really good, useful things you can do. And I'm sure the awards will demonstrate some of these where, model audit and validation. You know, just having an IFC means you can do this. You have, you know, one checking tool against the schema. So we can start doing lots of things in a consistent way by having IFC available. And we can do analyses, because the tools that do the analysis say, well, I'll just read the IFC. I can always do it against the IFC. And we can do great reporting. QTO is also becoming a very common use case for IFC. Other things, BSDD we talked about, so data dictionaries, connection to that, so we can actually get classifications and other attribution on a consistent manner, and also mappable against local or other national schemas. We can provide certification, and for me that really is at the heart of the software. Does the software export to the correct MVD? Can it import to that MVD? You know, does that exchange be consistent? Model coordination has probably been one of the most commonly used use cases for IFC, because it provides that geometrical validation. There are some limitations, by the way, because geometry isn't always consistently exported or imported, just because of the nature of how we create IFCs, but that has been a big use case. And reality capture, I've put that on there because over the last few years during the awards, there have been some fantastic examples of scan to BIM or scan to IFC workflows, showing that IFC becomes a really good way to consume scans, so we can do legacy asset information capture. You know, we've got developed infrastructure, developed buildings. If we're going to reduce our carbon footprint, the way to do that isn't by building new stuff. It's actually, let's go and fix the old stuff wherever practically possible, but we need to know what it looks like, because I guarantee most asset owners have poor or non-existent records. So great use case for IFC. And then moving forward, we can look at the kind of future of digital twins, smart cities and so forth, and improving sustainable design. And of course, we always want to reduce errors. I'm not telling you now that IFC is going to reduce errors. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to make that happen. But let's also acknowledge the limitations. And this is for me really important, because if I overpromise and underdeliver, you'll go away from me saying, well, it's either IFC's fault, buildingSMART's fault, or Autodesk's fault. And we don't want that. What we want people to do is be quite clear on, the boundaries where it works. And I've used the term there that open standards augment native formats and solutions. We have to have a modeling tool to create an IFC. If you don't have a Revit, how are you going to get an IFC? You can't say, well, use the IFC modeling application. I think I know of only one software vendor who actually creates native IFCs. This is always a kind of export-import. So we do need those modeling tools, and then we generate the IFCs. But the most commonly misunderstood use case is round-tripping, moving designs all the way around, and it comes back, and I can carry on using it and keep working on it. IFC is, in its principle, a snapshot of what something looked like when the modeling tool did its work. So we create an IFC. I don't want to call it a P. That's probably a simple way of illustrating it. This is what the generated design looks like. You can use it for spatial coordination. It can have all the attribution in it, but you can't then use that to recreate design from start. You still need to retain a lot of the native data. So please don't presume that round-tripping is a supported use case. And it has often been one of the most kind of expected, but unfortunately it doesn't deliver. 2D drawings, it's not for that. Parametric design is hard, and so these are kind of core things that are not possible with IFC. Some other things I've put in here are, if you use IFC in a workflow, it's not going to guarantee you're going to reduce time. It might not increase simplicity. Actually, you might need different skills in the team to use it, because they'll have to be more aware of the kind of things you can and cannot do with it. And similarly, you don't always get a consistent experience. But the one that really I want to emphasize is I put the cross-route ISO. So I've been part of the UK government work on what was our BIM Level 2, then became our 1192 series of standards, and now the ISO 19650 standards for collaborative working using BIM. Within that, there is a core principle that you will create a plan for how you're going to deliver work. So if you don't do any planning and you say, well, we're going to use IFC and it'll be great, and you haven't tested the softwares, you haven't tested the workflows, you haven't tested that it meets the required information deliverables, and it fails, that is not the fault of IFC, buildingSMART, Autodesk, Bentley, Dassault. It's because you didn't plan. So please, make sure when we do our projects, if we're going to leverage BIM effectively, we must ensure we understand the information requirements, and we deliver a BIM execution plan, then master information delivery plans and task information delivery plans, that we test, can we actually deliver what we're saying we can, and not just presume it will work. So to me, a critical point is, it's not the fault of openBIM if your plan fails because you didn't test, if your project fails because you didn't test the tools. And finally, I think this is probably work to be done by all of us, is at the moment, support for IFC. I don't think there's a helpline for IFC. It's done in local areas by local teams on a kind of goodwill and intention. I think perhaps for buildingSMART, we may need to look forward into what could we do to increase support to our community. Revision history, it's not part of the schema as it stands today. We, of course, don't cover the entire built environment. And looking forward, when we have a kind of object working pattern, the schema doesn't really have a data security wrapper in it at the moment. And this could be quite critical. We need to have the veracity of the object itself. So this is work to be done. It's not saying that IFC is never going to do that. I think this is it's got to be on the roadmap as something if we're going to grow the footprint of IFC use in the future. So this isn't being negative about IFC, it's just being honest about what you can and cannot do. And I think let's not overstate it, because the previous slide, there was loads of things you can do. So just finishing off the last few minutes about what we as Autodesk do and our willingness to continue supporting IFC and openBIM. We're changing how we now do IFC within Revit and associated products. So earlier on you saw that we've got support in sort of 15 or 16 products for 2x3 and 4. What we're doing now is we've joined, so we've replaced our library toolkit for IFC generation to use the ODA one. We've been working with them for over 2 years now. I'm really pleased to say that ODA are very active in the development of ongoing IFC, particularly 4.3, 4.4 and so forth. So their engine is up to date, so we can leverage their toolkit, and we already have that in our core products you see on the left-hand side, and we will potentially migrate other tools to use that in the near term. I say potentially because there might be something else we'll do, and I'll explain that shortly. We've also developed a plugin for Civil 3D, and I'm very pleased to say it is available today. You can actually if you get Civil 3D now, and you go to manage.autodesk.com, you can actually download the extension for Civil 3D. So we can, and these are open viewer exports consuming IFC from Civil 3D, showing platform, underground utilities, track work, electrification, and so forth. So this is available. So please, if you're a Civil 3D user, go out and test using IFC 4.3. One caveat, this is our best guess at what is to be certified, because we don't have the final model view definitions for the exchanges published yet, and again, you'll hear more about that over coming 2 days. But we are already able to export and import IFC 4.3 to our best understanding of what will be certifiable exchanges. And you can bring that into Revit. You can do this today. You can consume IFC 4.3 into Revit. So Revit will read IFC 4.3. There is more work to be done, so I've put a beta up there. So this is another one of our things that we're working on. There's a few things that are quite challenging, and not least of what will be a alignment within a modeling tool like Revit. We are working on this. I cannot give you any timeline for this, but it's something that's very high priority for us. We have a published roadmap of investments on a thing called Trello, if you are interested to look it up. Also, if you don't like the way we do IFC, it's available on GitHub. You can play with it. You can tweak the engine. It's fully available to you. And actually, you can actually get that also through the Autodesk deployment toolkit as well. So if you're an Autodesk user, the IFC export for Revit, it's available for you, and you can modify it. So if you want to test additional attributes that you want to add, or model extensions, whatever it be, you can actually practice it because you can modify it. And it's not just about us. Our partners are also heavily involved in this. And if you go to apps.autodesk.com, put in IFC, you'll get a whole list of different available local feature functions, little improvements that maybe do things better than we do it in natively, or they support certain workflows. So the last thing I'll just mention is we haven't finalized what we're going to do with other tools. Because we have this raft of solutions out there, I've got people in the room here from Autodesk who are working on what we call Autodesk Translation Framework, ATF. And our work is focused on sharing between our modeling applications using ATF and adding IFC as one of those shares. So whatever tool you use, in the future, I can't give you again a timeline, we will be able to give you, hopefully, support for IFC using ATF. Again, no timeline, and it will be an incremental addition of tools as we go, but we've already got proof of working features for Revit. So, the last couple of things is we also offer advice, and this is something I think is really important. We help our communities. We've got the IFC Revit manuals now in version 2. I've spoken with my colleague Angel Velez in the room here just at Autodesk University last month. And we provide webinars in local languages as well. So we're constantly trying to inform and advise our community. And our colleague Leila Sakabegovic, she does some fantastic YouTube videos. Please look her up. She's got a really great way of delivering information about IFC. So, final slide for you, and a call to action, is let's all be open about openBIM. I think it's our collective responsibility. Let's be honest about what it does do and what it doesn't do as well. But starting again with that principle, interoperability is key to information in the transformation in the built asset industry. Our user community needs consistent openBIM clarity, suitability, and expectation setting. If we set the expectation right, we'll get critical mass of adoption. I feel so happy that the IFC developments around 4.3 are here today because it's going to increase that footprint. I said this earlier, if there are infrastructure owners in the room, in the near term, you will be able to specify this with confidence that the software is available to deliver the information and that your user community can create IFC 4.3s in a consistent manner. But we do need those MVDs and software certification available. So call to action to the MVD team, technical room and so forth. And finally, there's lots of great stuff happening, you know, whether it's BSDD, IDS, asset operations handover, IFC5 or whatever it might be called in the future. This means that, you know, we're on in a great trajectory to make the openBIM footprint even bigger in coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Marek. Thank you, Marek. Just working? Okay. It's always great to get the context and understand how it all holds together. And it's exciting stuff. We can see that there's a huge demand for openBIM processes and being able to see how many there are and how it all hangs together, as I say. By the way, the opportunities for improvement that Marek was talking about, they're for us as a collective community to develop and deliver. Yes, there's a small core team of buildingSMART International in the management office, but we're there really to give you the structure. It's for you to collaborate and make the demands and put in place the improvements. We're going to go to a break shortly. Before we do, I just want to tell you that our sponsor exhibitors are on the 3rd floor. So please go and visit them. There's a lift lobby, there's a stairwell. Make sure you take the right stairs. I went down the stairs yesterday and ended up in the bank next door and had to leave the building by their exit and walk around the block and come back in. True story. Maybe it's just me, but be careful about that one. Okay. So we want to restart, please, at 11:05. So that's 20 minutes. And we'd like to be prompt as well, because we've got a lot to get through, some really good speakers. Thank you.
buildingSMART is the worldwide industry body driving the digital transformation of the built asset industry, committed to delivering improvement by the creation and adoption of open, international standards and solutions for infrastructure and buildings. buildingSMART is an open, neutral and international not-for-profit organisation. And with a global community of chapters, members, partners and sponsors, it's enabling better collaboration and digital workflows through the solutions and standards it delivers.
buildingSMART International is incredibly well known in the built asset industry because we've developed open standards and services to support all the organisations that contribute to that and the end users that use some of those standards and services so brilliantly on their projects.
buildingSMART exists because we want to enable digital transformation. We're committed to promoting open data formats for all the players in the built asset industry, so all the people who are involved in an asset's life. And that means that they will be able to have the right information, the information they need at the right time.
buildingSMART International visited Lombardi Engineering Limited, a Swiss civil engineering company, to discuss how they use open standards, openBIM, and how they translate these into real-world projects. As a BSI member, Lombardi deliver first-class tunneling projects and an openBIM approach.
Dr. Lombardi founded the company in 1955. We are active in a lot of countries, Switzerland, but also Europe and LATAM and India and Australia. We are in the main two core businesses. The one is tunneling, and the other one is all together with water, hydropower, delivery systems. Those are our two core businesses. Operation and maintenance is becoming really important for our clients. If you don't have standards, you don't get what the other company, the other person is saying. So it's a common language we need in the infrastructure. Otherwise, we will never go further.
For us, working with the Buildings International and IFC standard is really important because we need to use this exchange information format in order to put our designing and construction data into the model and deliver it at the client in order to be reused for the operation and maintenance phase. For Lombardi, it's really important to be able to manage the digital destiny of the company and of its client. We know that technology runs very fast and we need to be faster than it. So we have two departments that take care of research and development. One is linked to the academic world and has been founded by Mr. Giovanni Lombardi several years ago. And one is this strategic digital unit. They take care of the development of workflow and standard documentation regarding the use of BIM.
buildingSMART is crucial to one of Lombardi's current projects, the Tremezzina variante. This is an underground road diversion project that aims to alleviate congestion in the small coastal town of Como.
Going to visit a live construction site with Lombardi and Anas, the operator from Italy, is incredibly exciting for me because it's one of the first times we're able to connect some of the theoretical standards that we've developed over these many years, some of the supporting services that we're developing, into a real-world project.
The Tremezzina variante is made up of 4 main tunnels running mostly underground for a total length of about 10 kilometers. As the designer, Lombardi is using an open BIM approach to ensure good collaboration, design review and flexibility with other stakeholders and the client, Anas, the national road operator in Italy.
Testing mic 1, 2, 1, 2.
Space we have in this area. We deal with very few square meters of land, and the machine and all the equipment for the underground excavation must be fit in the very close space. And also there are very peculiar points in which the tunnels are close each other, so we have to be careful right there.
It is really important to use the BIM method in order to check before we go on the construction site where we have a very restricted time of construction because we impact a lot on the roadway. So we need to be sure that the planning and all the technical issues are very well set up and no variations could happen during the construction phase.
openBIM is working really well in this project because it allows us to be able to collaborate with other companies that are not working with the same software as ours because they are working in different disciplines or in different fields of the same discipline. So having an openBIM approach and an IFC way of doing stuff, it allows us to collaborate with them without any troubles.
This project has created confidence in the openBIM design work for ANAS, a company that manages over 30,000 kilometers of road in Italy and over 1,800 bridges, among other work. They also see the benefit of openBIM and want to drive more projects in the future.
ANAS for us is very important to obtain correct data to use during the maintenance, and this is my principal works, my principal job, to check this data, to define the rule how this data should be used during the construction sites and during the maintenance.
buildingSMART standards is very important for us because we can manage a lot of information. Obviously, in this project was very hard for us, but that's simple. We can manage a lot of information properly in a simple way.
With clients asking for more openBIM readiness and recognizing the need for IFC standards, Lombardi have found themselves in a leading position to provide these skills as part of the buildingSMART community.
We are at the Colonno portal, the southern end of this alignment, and you can see behind me the excavation in which there will be the three entrances of the tunnel, the main tunnel, the service tunnel, and the Colonno diversion. You can see the very challenging area due to the reduced space, and the excavation will take place at that change.
I'm very excited to be here after we work a lot of time to the model, to see the construction site, and we see the develop in real time about the construction site. We check the develop of this after many day work in the model, and now it's very exciting to see the real construction site.
Well, it's fantastic to be on site and see the theory being put into practice. Tunnelling projects have always been difficult, but this one looks to be even more challenging than most because of the tight constraints of the site. The digital approach that they're taking with the design, I think, is informing how they're managing their logistics. It's also informing how they're managing the decisions regarding the geological excavations and the access for the design tunnels. So to me, this looks like it's a really challenging site. In what ways has the digital approach helped you overcome some of the problems?
The digitalization and virtualization of this kind of items permit to anticipate the big problem that is the interchange here, the main point of this part. And in the office you have this part modeled and you can study it better.
So not only have IFC standards and openBIM enabled Lombardi to deliver the detailed and strategic design needed for this particular project, they're also helping to win more projects and to deliver trust and confidence with their clients.
buildingSMART International has helped just in the last tender Lombardi to win a new tender because, for example, clients are now asking us how do you want to approach your project using the openBIM standard. We are developing all our standards in an openBIM approach because we trust that this is the only way that we can go in the future with the development of digitalization also in our company.
Working with Lombardi, buildingSMART and openBIM gave us a lot of confidence.